Alright y'all, we back with another Solo Leveling Arise video, and today we're going to be talking about the latest dev notes, discussing new artifacts, gears, and then obviously touching up on the Monday live stream that the devs are going to be hosting. On top of that, we're going to be, talking about the artifacts that they are bringing to the game and obviously revamping and reworking on. So first off, the devs in the dev notes, they emphasize that artifact farming is a core enjoyable element to the game. This is very much true. Of course, if you do not have good artifacts, you're not going to enjoy the game because you probably won't be able to do the hardest content, and that's going to have the most enjoyment, at least in my opinion, right? You would have the most enjoyment by building up your account, making yourself stronger, feel like you're progressing, have that sense of accomplishment, right? That definitely is a very core feature to the entirety of the game. Without farming artifacts, you just aren't actually playing the game. So it is super important, and I agree with them there, right? So basically, in the dev notes, if you guys noticed, I did touch up on it on an earlier video, but basically they're going to be adding new instance and encore dungeon bosses and missions. On top of that, they're going to be adding new artifact sets and, of course, revamping the old artifact sets. Now, there's going to be level 70 and 75 artifacts. On top of that, the old artifacts are going to have new set effects. We don't know how it will function, but I do know one thing for sure: there is going to be 5 set effects, which I'll touch up on a little bit later on in the video. Now, basically, they're just trying to make sure that the OG sets that we have in the game aren't just there for no reason. Like, realistically, the only people that are using it are the ones who just started. They're getting these artifact sets so that way they can upgrade into the evoking sets, the Curse, Greed, and the Blessing, right? But they wanted to make the old sets still kind of usable in some certain way, because then when you do manage to get the Vulcan sets, then what is the point of like even doing the Encore and instance dungeons? You're just kind of just doing them just to do them, right? Just for your dailies. So they just kind of want to make them viable. Of course, there is some characters that benefit a lot more from it. Having the OG sets, they kind of have a little bit better synergy with those OG sets. Like, for example, for Hong, I would like to run Curse and then some Viridescent, and I'll still get that damage dealt increase and all that good stuff. But I can't, because Viridescent is obviously not going to compare the Curse's stats, because the Curse are higher leveled and their stat ceiling is way much higher than it would be on the Viridescent set, which is only like level 55, right? So I'm glad that they're going to be buffing those. Of course, they're also going to be reworking how they work and all that, so they might be different. We'll see. Obviously, this is just theories and speculations and all that, but it is confirmed that they are going to be reworking the OG sets and then, of course, adding new higher levels. That much we know. So they just want to bring up the value a little bit so that way they're not completely irrelevant. Next up, we have the upcoming bosses, right? So these are going to be the bosses that I'm going to talk about right now that are going to be coming in the near future and then in the later future as well. And they're going to be bringing new artifact sets, of course, also buffing the OG sets. So if you're familiar with how the current Encore is, if you do Casca or the I forgot what the mage's name is, but if you do those two, you can notice that they do have all the same sets as Cerebus and Arachnid, but at a much lower level. So I have a feeling it's going to be very similar, where we're going to get 2 new bosses, and they're going to be the next new boss for Encore and Instance Dungeons, and then they're going to have the higher leveled ones, right? So you probably never will do Cerebus and Arachnid ever again, because they'll probably be locked at level 55 gear, but I could be wrong, and they might just add more tiers, like maybe up to tier 12 or tier 15, and then give them higher levels. Like I said, this is all speculation, right? We do know that these are the bosses that are going to be coming to the game. So let's talk about a little bit about these actual bosses, right? So we have Soldier Mace, Esil Radiru, Kargalgan, Kaisellin, Unarmed Luxis, and then the huge statue, the Architect, right? So let's go from, we'll kind of do it a little bit like, left, down, right, up, whatever, all that good stuff. We'll just go through each boss, right? In the order that I feel like it sees fit, right? So first up, we have the Soldier Mace. Soldier Mace is going to be an Encore boss. The reason for this is because there's actually a leaked artifact set that is very similar to him, like overall, like it literally looks like him. It is his artifact set. By far, it's his artifact set. It's armor, so he's definitely going to be an Encore dungeon boss. We have Esil Radiru as well. She also has a set, but I'm not going to confirm this. There's a possibility that it could just be for a different boss, but she's the only one that has that very like similar aesthetic, and basically it's called the Crimson Knight set, and it looks just like Igris's armor. So I mean, it's possible that she could be the one dropping that gear. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that she's going to be an Encore dungeon boss as well, right? Next up, we have Kargalgan. Kargalgan is obviously, as we know as Tusk. He is going to be an instant dungeon boss. The reason for this is he actually has an accessory set that is like one for one what orcs wear. Like it has all the bones and everything, right? And it's also labeled as the orc artifact set, right? So basically, he is going to be an instance dungeon boss. It's practically confirmed, just basically judging off of the fact that it's accessories, and accessories means you're doing instance dungeons. Next up, we have Kaisellin. Kaisellin, I have no confirmation on anything of him, or like there's nothing to actually, route back to him. He's just probably, in my opinion, I think he's going to be an instance dungeon boss, if I'm being real, because majority of these other bosses are going to be encore dungeon bosses. So in my opinion, I feel like he'd be an instance dungeon boss. Next up, you have the Unarmed Luxis. Unarmed Luxis is going to be an encore dungeon boss. I know this because he has an artifact set. It's literally his artifact set. There's nothing else to debate about. He's going to be an encore dungeon boss. Simple as that. I have nothing else to touch up on this character. I don't read Solo Leveling, so I don't even know who this is. I'm gonna be real with you. Next up, we have the huge statue, the Architect. This boss looks absolutely wicked, looks cool as hell. I have no clue for any idea what he's gonna be in. His asset is labeled as Instance Dungeon, so we're just gonna take it as is and say that he's gonna be an Instance Dungeon. But I would like to say that we do have a game mode that we haven't received yet called Dimensional Gap, and in Dimensional Gap, he could possibly be the boss for it, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised. He's unique. Looks cool as hell. It'd be nice to have him in his own separate type of content, right? But I have no way of confirming that or anything. We just know that he is labeled as an instance dungeon boss, and it'll be in the near future. Now, for which of these bosses are going to be coming in the future, like when they're going to be coming soon, it's very likely that Kargalgan and Unarmed Luxis are going to be the very next ones that are going to be releasing. So we've already been Tusk and all that good stuff in story, all that. So he's definitely going to be one of the ones that are going to be coming. And then Unarmed Luxis, I would have to say, is probably also going to be coming along with him, right? That's my prediction. I could be wrong, and they might just decide to give us Kargalgan and then Esil Radiru, and then later on give us Unarmed Luxis and then Kaisellin. But I have a feeling that it's definitely going to be Kargalgan and Unarmed Luxis. One Encore boss and then one Instance Dungeon boss. Those are going to be the two new bosses. We're going to get new artifacts and then new accessories, new armor, and then of course we're going to get revamped of the old artifact sets. Next up, we're going to go on to the next page, and the next page is going to be having the assets, or basically the images of the leaked artifact sets, right? So as you can see, there's plenty of them. There's actually even more, but literally, as you can see, it's taking up the entirety of the entire image, like the whole screen. If I put any more, it would be too small. It would just look so weird. So this is what we went with. This is all the sets that are going to be coming out. We're gonna have 5 for the armors and then 5 for the accessories. So as you notice, like at first glance, there's actually 1 extra slot for each set. This is basically going to change how you play the game. You're basically going to have 5 set effects rather than having 4 set effects. Now, you might still have the 4 set effects. I don't know for sure yet, but I am 100% without doubt there's going to be 5 set effects. And I can confirm it because I do have another image. But basically, we're going to be getting belts for the new artifact sets and the OG artifact sets. That also includes the Vulcan Curse, Greed, Blessing. Those are all also going to get belts, and they are also going to get talismans. Now, this is definitely going to change how you play a lot, because now you're going to have 10 slots rather than just having 8 slots. You can even run sets kind of in a different manner, like maybe let's say you want to run just straight 2s. You want to run a 2 set, 2 set, 2 set, 2 set, 2 set. You want to run 5 2 sets. Well, you can do that, because with the curse set, at least the curse set will have 1 piece in the armor, which would be like, belts, and in the accessories, right? Because they are going to most likely have 10 set effects, right? So you can still run a 2 2 2 2 if you want, right? Even though it's an odd number on both sides, right? So that's good, right? You can just have a little bit more flexibility in building your characters however you like. So I really like that. And of course, they're going to be buffing the OG one, so now you might have more viability in actually using the OG sets. Now, other than talking about how many set pieces there are and, obviously changing the structure of the game with the actual amount that you have, there's actually going to be these new artifact sets, and you can see they have a very, very close resemblance to most of the bosses that I showed you. Now, right here with this first one, as we can notice, it looks very much like Igris, right? But we already have Igris as an instance dungeon boss, so the only way that I can cross this out is basically this is going to be dropping from the Esil Radiru Encore dungeon boss. because it just looks like Igris, but you know, Esil Radiru basically looks like Igris too. So it's like, all right, this is definitely going to be for Esil Radiru. Next up, you have this one. This one has the same face, or similar face, and the armor looks very similar as well to Unarmed Luxis. So Unarmed Luxis is definitely going to be an Encore dungeon boss too, just by judging with the artifact set that drops with it. Next up, we have this set. Now, this set looks just like the Soldier Mace. That basically confirms that he is going to be an Encore dungeon boss. Like, why would he not be an Encore dungeon boss if he literally has a set that looks just like exactly like him? So yeah, I mean, there's nothing to debate about that. Next up, we have this set on the right hand side of it is basically going to be the Orc artifact set. This one is going to be the set that you get from obviously Tusk, Kargalgan, and that basically confirms that he's going to be an instance dungeon boss. So that's how I kind of came into the conclusion of which boss is actually going to be Encore and which boss is going to be instances. Now, obviously, like I said before, I don't have any confirmation on what Kaisellin or the Architect are going to be, but they're very likely to be instance dungeon bosses just because they were labeled as such in the assets and files. So, yeah. As you can see, these are all the new artifact sets. It's crazy how we're gonna have 10 sets, 5 sets. We're gonna have way crazier like building and all that stuff. We're gonna have so much to play with and see what, you know, how they turn out, right? So very interesting indeed, very interesting. Now that we already touched up a little bit on, you know, obviously talismans being new, bells being new, and then all of these also being new artifact sets. So next up we have this image. So this is where the image where I came to the conclusion that there is going to be 5 set effects now that we have 5 sets. And naturally, anybody would assume that we would get 5 set effects considering they have an added belt onto the piece, right? Because then, like, what's the point of running it, right? So right here basically confirms there's going to be 5 set effects. Now, we do not know specifically what the punishment of the White Flames is. We just know it's a 5 set effect. It starts off at 5 set. It doesn't show any 2 set effects. So we're just going to assume that all the new gear is probably going to have only 5 set effects and not 2 sets. I mean, I could be wrong. Just keep in mind, a lot of this is subject to change, but it's very likely that we're obviously going to get 5 set effects. There's no reason that they would even build that for any reason, right? And then add a 5th set anyways, if they weren't going to have 5 set effects. As you can see, it increases skill mana consumption rate by, so it's going to be very similar to the Viridescent one. The one that increases your MP consumption, but then gives you cooldown reduction and then also increases your damage dealt. This is definitely going to be very similar to that in the sense that it increases your mana consumption, but we don't know if it increases damage or what it does. It says Punishment of the White Flames. One would assume that it's going to be a set for Bait, but in some cases that doesn't really matter because sets can be for anybody, right? Another thing that I'd also like to note, as you can see just below it, it has one of the artifact sets that I did show in the previous panel. And just going off of this, you can kind of basically guess that these two are going to drop together on the future boss. I don't know when. We just know that they're going to drop together. And then, as you can notice, there's legendary rarity, there's an epic rarity, and then there's like the blue rarity, whatever. The yellow, purple, and blue. And just based off that, you know it's going to be from an Encore dungeon. It's not going to be anything from like Baron or any other game mode. It's definitely going to be Encore just because you normally don't have blue rarities unless you have the much lower tiers because it had to be easy content in the first place. So it's most likely going to be, you know, it's going to be the lower tier ones from like tier 5 or lower or something like that, or tier 8 and lower, I believe, of the new Encore dungeon bosses, right? So this is Encore dungeon artifacts. They're not from anything else, no other game mode, right? Another thing you can also note is there's cooldown reduction as one of the substats. Now it says engraving effects. It's very interesting that they came with engraving effects. So I know in the earlier leak there was actually some information about actually engraving your artifacts. Now I don't know if this is what this is referring to when you engrave your artifacts, like if you add on extra substats to the artifacts. I do not know. There's like no confirmation. All I know is I can see right here there's cooldown reduction. That is an entirely new substat that you can obtain obviously on an artifact. This is definitely going to change how you play the game. Most characters, I had like 99.9% sure most of them are going to be using this like in every single one of their kit, just because the faster you get your skills, obviously the more damage you do, and that's definitely going to be important for any character. Like it's like you can't even debate that. It's simple as that. You're probably going to go your stats that you need, a percentage, and you're going to get like your damage increase, your crit damage, and then your cooldown reduction. That's usually how most characters are going to be built, at least if they're in the DPS role or sub DPS role. And then obviously if you're in the support role, you already fucking know what you gotta get. You gotta get whatever stat they fucking need for the support, and then boom, you give them the cooldown reduction. Call it a day, easy clap. You know what I'm saying? So what we do know is there's gonna be new artifact sets, new dungeon bosses. There's probably gonna be 2, 1 encore, 1 instance. We're going to be getting the revamp of all the old sets. We're going to have 2 new extra slots. They're going to be the belts and talismans. And then on top of that, there's going to be 5 set effects, and there's most likely going to be 10 set effects if there's a 5 set effect, right? Because the Curse, Greed, and Blessing set have the belt and the talisman. So that means you have 2 extra pieces, 2 extra slots to go onto the actual set, which makes it so that way you can have a 10 set effect. Because if you're going for the 8 set effect, you might as well just finish off with a 10 set effect, am I right? So we know that much. They're probably going to have a 10 set effect as on top of their 8 set effect. Obviously, they're going to be buffing all the OG sets and all that, so that's good. We are uncertain what their elements are being for the bosses. We don't know what element they're actually going to be. They could be any element. I have no confirmation, but it's very likely they might just copy the boss's elements in the game that are already there, and they might just use the same element. So whatever Tusk was weak to in story, he might still be weak to that. Same for Soldier Mace. Whatever he's weak to, he's probably going to be weak to the same inside Encore dungeon bosses. Who knows? I'm only guessing because Cerebus was, obviously the same element in story as he is in Encore. Same with Igris, he's the same element as he was in story. Same with the majority of those bosses, right? So you just kind of assume that, the story mode bosses, when they go into Encore and Instance, will be the same element disadvantage, right? And then we don't know what their drop locations are going to be, but you can kind of just guess where at least 3 of them would be, 4 of them. The rest is unconfirmed what they would drop at. It's all completely speculation. And then of course we don't know if the new slots for belt and talisman, we have no clue what they're going to drop in. They could drop, obviously by what we can see by that one boss architect, for all we know, the belts and talismans could drop from him. Who the fuck knows? But all I know is we're going to be getting a whole bunch of new stuff. It's going to change the whole entirety of how you play the game. The structure is going to be completely different. I mean, the goal is still going to be the same, but realistically, how you build characters won't. They'll be very much different depending on how much value the actual OG and the new artifact sets have, right? Other than that, that's basically it. I just wanted to put that out there, basically, with all the bosses coming and all the artifact sets. I figured I might as well just show everyone what the artifact sets look like, and then kind of a little bit of a sneak peek of one of the artifact sets being the Punishment of the White Flame set. So, I mean, there it is. The 5 set effects are coming. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, how you feel about how the game is coming out to be, with the 5 set effects and then them reworking on the old sets. I think they're doing a pretty nice job in keeping relevancy throughout all parts of the game, making the quality of life enjoyable so that way people actually feel good playing the game. I feel like Netmarble stepped up compared to all their other shitty games. Like every single other one, complete cash grab, right? But in this one, I feel like you don't have to spend money to have that same factor of excitement, like you're enjoying the game, because it's much more free to play friendly, but there's actually incentives to actually whale as well. So it kind of has like the best of both worlds, if that makes sense. Right, so I feel like they're doing a really good job with the game, and I just wanted to put out what was coming out and all that good stuff, so that way we can just kind of discuss it as a community. Of course, be sure to share this with as many people as possible, so that people are aware of the bosses that are coming, and of course the artifact sets, so then they can kind of get an idea based off of speculation. And of course, everybody can make their own opinions on it. I appreciate you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Your engagement is key to the success of this channel. And then, of course, we'll share more with the community in future videos. Peace.